Hello students, welcome back to our channel. Today we will talk about allelopathy and allelochemical. In the previous lectures we have already covered weeds, their beneficial and harmful effects, classification of weeds, then crop weed competition. Today we are going to discuss about allelopathy and allelochemical. So in crop weed competition we have already told you that crop weed interference consists of competition as well as allelopathy. Competition is indirect in nature because here weeds directly do not compete with the crop, or crop directly do not fight with the weeds, but they take up the resources that is similar for both crop and weed. Suppose for example oxygen, for example carbon dioxide, for example water, for example nutrient, their uptake is similar, means their physiology, both crop and weed, they are plants, so their physiology and morphology are similar, so they require these resources, and the resources are limited in the soil and in the upper atmosphere, that is limited, so they fight for that resources, so indirectly they are affecting each other. So among two different type of interference like competition and allelopathy, competition is indirect in nature and allelopathy that is direct in nature, because in allelopathy what happens? In allelopathy one plant releases certain toxic chemical and that is harmful for the surrounding plant, that may be crop, that may be weed. So allelopathy, it refers to the detrimental effect of one plant species on germination, growth and metabolism of another plant species due to release of certain chemical, and that chemical is known as allelopathy. Allelochemical. The chemical that is responsible for allelopathy, that is known as allelochemical. So the term allelopathy was coined by Hans Mollis. Remember, the term allelopathy was coined by Hans Mollis in 1937, and this term allelopathy was derived from Greek word allelon or allelo, that means mutual or each other, and pathos or patho, that means suffering or to suffer. That means one plant that is releasing certain allelochemical and that is suppressing the growth, germination, growth and the development of surrounding plant. That is the process is known as allelopathy, and that chemical responsible for allelopathy, that is known as allelochemical. So the history, let's study one point that is based on the history of allelopathy. In 1st century AD, Pliny the Elder in his book Naturalis Historica mentioned about the stunted growth of plants grown in the vicinity of walnut plant, that is Juglans regia. Okay, so if you find the walnut plant, or suppose eucalyptus or maybe some tree species, so in the vicinity of those tree species there will you cannot find any other vegetation, so that is due to the allelopathic effect. So Pliny the Elder first mentioned in his book Naturalis Historica that in the surrounding of the walnut, that is Juglans regia, there is stunted growth of different plants, and that is due to allelopathic effect. Then there are different types of allelopathy. Let's discuss one by one. Different types of allelopathy. One is autoallelopathy and alloallelopathy. Autoallelopathy means it is the plant itself suppressing the nearby same plant. Okay, the plant which is secreting the allelochemical, that is suppressing the growth and development of the same plant grown surrounding to that plant, right? So that is intraspecific chemical coaction. So which crop and which weeds, they are having this autoallelopathy? For example, wheat, lucerne, sweet potato, they are having this autoallelopathic effect. That may be the current allelopathy, that may be the residual allelopathy. Suppose for example, if we are growing rice after rice, there may be certain allelopathic effect. If we grow wheat after wheat, then there may be certain allelopathic effects. So to overcome this allelopathic effect, this autoallelopathic effect, to overcome this autoallelopathic effect, the solutions are like crop rotation. We should rotate the crop, means after growing of rice crop, we should go for another pulse crop or maybe another cereal crop, not that same crop. Okay, then we can remove it through tillage. Then residue removal. So how this one rice crop is affecting or impacting the allelopathic effect on other rice crop? By the residue decomposition, there are certain chemicals like phenols, they release to the soil. they actually hamper the growth of the next rice crop, right? So these are the solutions. Then allopathy. In autoallopathy, what happens? The same plant releases certain chemical and that is harmful for the same species. In allopathy, there are different species. One crop may affect the other crop, one weed may affect the other weed, but different species, right? That's why this is interspecific chemical coaction. This is the allelopathy, that is interspecific chemical coaction. Suppose maize reducing the growth of chenopodium and chenopodium also reducing the growth of maize. Then Cyperus rotundus, that is affecting the sorghum plant, growth of sorghum plant, and sorghum plant also affects several other weeds grown surrounding. Okay, so that is allopathy, and this is interspecific. Autoallopathy, that is intraspecific. Allopathy, that is interspecific. Then another types of allopathy, one is true allopathy, another one is functional allopathy. True allopathy means the chemical that is released from one plant that is itself toxic to the surrounding plant. Okay, the chemical that is releasing from one plant that is itself toxic to the surrounding plant. Okay, that is true allopathy. The chemical that is released toxic to neighbor plant in the form they are produced. Remember, in the form they are produced. But in functional allopathy, that chemical released from one plant that pertain to change, okay, change in their metabolic structure or maybe change in chemical, there is certain chemical modification to be toxic. Okay, the chemical secreted from one plant that is not itself toxic, but after certain modification that becomes toxic, that is functional allopathy. So what is functional allopathy? This is the chemical released become toxic to neighbor plant after some chemical modification by microbes. Okay, so this is about true and functional allopathy. Then concurrent or direct allopathy and residual allopathy. What is concurrent or direct allopathy? That is the direct effect of release of toxin from living plant to another growing in the vicinity. Suppose one plant is there, like sorghum plant, it secretes dhurin or HCN that is having certain allopathic effect on surrounding plant or weed. That is the current or direct allopathy. That means at that particular time that is harmful for the surrounding plant, and that process of allopathy. So this is called live plant effect. Like sorghum and barley, they secrete certain allelochemicals and that hinders the growth of the surrounding weeds or crop. Residual allopathy means at that particular moment that may or may not be allopathic, but after certain time period it is allopathic or it has that allopathic effect. Or in other words you can say, so if that particular plant or crop is having allopathic at that particular moment, then that is called concurrent or direct allopathy. And if it is having the residual activity for longer period, if it is pertaining the allopathic effect on surrounding plant, then that is called residual allopathy. Effects obtained on plant growing in succession from the decaying residue or leaf litter or stem, root or other plant part. Okay, so what happens? Due to the decomposition of that plant material, maybe certain allochemical releases to the soil and that impact certain negative effect on the surrounding or next crop. Okay, so that is basically residual allopathy. Like suppose lentil residue that is phytotoxic to next crop, that is wheat or sunflower. Sorghum residue that is having allopathic effect to wheat or phalaris minor. So these are different types of allopathy. What are they? One is autoallopathy and allopathy, then true allopathy and functional allopathy, then concurrent or direct allopathy and residual allopathy. Then let's discuss about forms of allopathic interaction. There are different forms of allelopathic interaction. So what is allopathy? I have already told. One plant releases certain allochemical that is toxic for the surrounding plant, and that plant may be crop, that plant may be weed. Okay, so crop against crop. So some crops they impair allopathic effect on surrounding crop. So crop selection in case of multiple cropping, if you are going for multiple cropping, if farmer is adopting multiple cropping, then we should check the allopathic effect. If there is certain allopathic effect of one crop on another crop, suppose we are taking intercropping, and in intercropping we generally grow two or more crop in a particular field. So if one crop from that intercropping system having allopathic effect on other crop, then there will be negative coaction. Okay, so while selecting component crop in intercropping, mixed cropping, multiple cropping or multi-storied cropping, allelopathic effect of one crop on other must be studied. Okay, for example, sunflower is having allelopathic effect on groundnut, lentil is having allelopathic effect on wheat, sweet potato is having allelopathic effect on cowpea. So they must not be grown in succession or maybe as intercropping, right? Then crop against weed. One is crop against crop, another one is crop against weed. So sorghum, like sorghum, that is a crop that inhibits the growth of surrounding weed because it secretes certain allelochemicals like HCN or prussic acid or dhurin. Then barley suppresses weeds in surrounding due to secretion of gramine alkaloid. Okay. Then maize has also allelopathic effect on Chenopodium album, Amaranthus species. So this is basically crop against weed. Then weed against crop. Weeds against crop. Okay. So like Euphorbia species that is having allelopathic effect on linseed, Cyperus rotundus that is having allelopathic effect on sorghum, Chenopodium album that is having allelopathic effect on maize. Then weeds against other weeds. Weeds against other weeds. Like Parthenium is one weed that is having allelopathic effect on many weeds that do not permit any weed to grow surrounding to that weed. That is Parthenium. Very little or no vegetation can be found near the Parthenium dominated area. Like Amaranthus species, Tagetes species, Cassia species, these species have allelopathic effect on Parthenium. So to control Parthenium, we can introduce these weeds like Amaranthus, Tagetes, Cassia. We can introduce these weeds in the Parthenium dominated field. Then it is important to control the problematic weed like Parthenium. So we can, as I was telling you. Then crop against same crop. Some crops they have allelopathic effect on same crop. So in the auto-allelopathic section, we have already covered that wheat, lucerne, rice, cowpea, clover, they are having allelopathic effect on same crop. So we should rotate the crop or we should go for tillage activity like that. This inhibit the growth when planted after the same crop residue or same crop is incorporated. Like then weed against same weed. Some weeds are there, they are having autotoxic effect like Trifolium repens, Parthenium. They suppress the same weed species grown surrounding to that plant species, that particular species, right? So that is having auto-allelopathic effect. So there were different forms of allelopathic interaction: crop against same crop, crop against other crop, crop against weed, weed against same crop, weed against other weeds, weed against crop. So these are different forms of allelopathic interaction. Then what is the problem of allelopathy in agriculture? What are the problems of allelopathy in agriculture? So allelochemicals, when they are secreted from any plant, where they will go? They will either vaporize and lost to atmosphere, or they may leach to soil, or they may move to soil. So they may cause soil sickness. That means they may reduce the soil quality. Okay. So if we go for monocropping again and again, we are growing same crop, then there may be residue accumulation, and that residue releases certain allelochemicals, and there will be increase in auto-allelopathy. So it will hinders the growth and yield of the crop. Then more effect in tropical, this soil sickness is more in tropical and subtropical than temperate zone. Okay, because in temperate zone, that is the atmospheric temperature or soil temperature is very low, so the decomposition rate is very low, so the allelopathic effect is also very low. Then autotoxicity, it poses autotoxicity. These allelochemicals, they possess autotoxicity. That means if we do coffee rattoning of coffee, that means if we after harvesting the coffee, then if we cut that coffee plant, then again it regenerates. So if we go for coffee rattan, then caffeine that produced in the root of coffee plant, and that hinders the growth or germination of the other crop. Okay. Then sugarcane rattan, same thing. Fusarium oxysporum that colonizes in the root and produces fusaric acid, that again inhibits the growth of the root and shoot as well. That is autotoxicity in coffee as well as sugarcane. That is autotoxicity you can find. Then increase crop weed interference. So both allopathy and competition, they are the part, or they are the different mechanism of interference in crop weed ecosystem. So near about 130 weed species reported to have allopathic effect, so they may interfere different crop as well as different weed. Then growing susceptibility of plants to diseases. Okay, so if there is allopathic effect, the plant growth will not be proper and the plants will become susceptible to different diseases and pests, because the plant becomes weaker if there is allopathic effect. Then there may be more disease and pest infestation. Then reduced nitrification and biological nitrification. So these allochemicals, they are again harmful for the microbes also. They hinders the growth of the microbes. So there may be reduction in nitrification as well as different nutrient cycle, right? Like ferulic acid, p-commaric acid, they inhibit the nitrosomonas population. Rice crop residue, if decomposes, then releases phenolic compounds that inhibit the rhizobium population. So there will be less biological nitrogen fixation. Then it also reduces the nutrient uptake. It also hinders the decomposition of weed seed. Then failure of vegetative propagation. Then suppression effect from tree, like Juglan regia we were already discussing. Okay, it do not allow or permit different vegetation nearby due to this allelopathic effect. So these are certain problems of allelopathy in agriculture. The next thing is allelochemical. What is allelochemical? We have already discussed that chemical that is causing the allelopathic effect, that is known as allelochemical. So those plants, they secrete the allelochemicals, that is called donor plant, and those plants that receive the allelochemical, or where the negative impact is, that is recipient plant. Okay, so what is allelochemical? Allelochemicals are basically the secondary metabolites, but all secondary metabolites are not allelochemical. What is metabolite? That means different biomolecules that is being secreted in the plant, that is being formed in the plant. Okay, so after photosynthesis or respiration, whatever biomolecules formed in the plant, that is called primary metabolite. Okay, after the degradation of primary metabolite, after the metabolism of primary metabolites, whatever the biomolecules that is formed inside the plant, that is called secondary metabolites. Okay, so allelochemicals are generally secondary metabolites. It has stimulatory or inhibitory effect. Okay, allelochemicals not only inhibit different process, but it may have stimulatory effect also, and that depends on the concentration of allelochemical. If the concentration is higher, then there will be inhibitory effect. If the concentration is lower, then there may be stimulatory effect of allelochemicals. Then all these allelochemicals, they are mainly grouped into 6 principal groups. Okay, and that was proposed by Rice in 1984. So what are those 6 principal groups? Those are aliphatic compound, unsaturated lactone, fatty acid and lipid, cyanogenic glucoside, terpenoid, and aromatic or phenolic compound. So let's discuss one by one. What are the allelochemicals present in which group? So basically in aliphatic compound, there are certain water soluble alcohols like methanol, ethanol, butanol, organic acids like fumaric acid, oxalic acid, lactic acid. Then mainly this inhibits the seed germination and seedling growth. Then in unsaturated lactone, you can find patulin and protoanemosin. Then fatty acid and lipid, dihydroxystearic acid, that is present in fatty acid and lipid. Then cyanogenic glucoside, amygdalin and its reduced form like prunicin, dhurin, these are belongs to cyanogenic glucoside. Then terpenoid, that is again classified as terpene and sesquiterpene. Under terpene, 1,8-cineol, camphin, limonin. Under sesquiterpene, parthenin, coronopilin, these are belongs to terpenoid group. Then aromatic or phenolic compound, this is the largest group of allelochemical, and it has different subgroups like phenol, phenolic acid, quinone, flavone, and tannins. Phenols like hydroquinone, phenolic acid like vanillic acid, p-commaric acid or coumarin, quinols like jaglone, juglone, okay, flavone like fluoridine, camphin, then tannins like glucoside, gallic acid. Okay, so these are certain group of allelochemicals. Okay, different groups of allelochemicals. Then source of allelochemicals. what may be the source of allochemical, whether it is crop root, whether it is the crop leaf, whether it is the crop stem or flower or fruit. So from any part of the crop, one allochemical may be secreted, okay, and that's based on that is depends on the species which is secreting the species which is secreting the allochemicals. Based on that, there are different sources of allochemicals, like plant residue decomposition, okay, that residue after decomposition it may secrete allochemicals. Then roots, in some plant the roots that may secrete allochemicals after their decomposition. Then leaves, after leaf fall or leaf leaching from the leaf, there may be some allochemical deposition in the soil. Then volatilization in the form from the leaves or flower from whole plant. Then seed leachate, seeds may itself release certain allochemicals, and that may hamper the surrounding crop, or that may hamper that particular seed. Then what is the mechanism of action of allochemicals, how they affect the crop plant or how they affect different plants? They may reduce the cell division or cell elongation, they may inhibit the hormonal activity, they may inhibit the photosynthesis, they may inhibit or the stomatal activity, they may inhibit the respiration or stimulate the respiration, they may inhibit protein synthesis, they may change in membrane permeability. And this inhibitory effect, that is based on the allochemical, which allochemical is acting on that plant, okay. Based on that, there may be different mechanisms that hinders the growth and development of that particular plant. Then what is the fate of allochemical? Once that allochemicals is secreted from the plant, where it will go, okay, that is called fate of allochemical. That may be absorbed in the soil colloid. Suppose once the plant secrete the allochemical, that may be absorbed in the soil colloid, that may be uptake by the surrounding plant, that may be volatilized, that may be leached down to the ground layer. There may be microbial degradation, microbes may degrade that allochemical. Then there may be chemical decomposition like oxidation, reduction, hydrolysis, dealkylation, ring cleavage, this may happen. So these are certain fate of allochemical, okay. Then how we can use these allochemicals in our weed management? Because we are studying as a researcher or as a graduate or postgraduate student, we must know the use of different chemicals or use of different activities or principles. So how we can use these allochemicals in our agriculture, okay. So to develop, these are basically chemicals. Again, to control the weeds, we use different chemicals, right? That those are known as herbicides. So these allochemicals, again, we can use to develop different new or novel biopesticide, okay. We can synthesize different, if we know that Parthenium is secreting certain allochemicals and it is also hindering certain other weeds in the surrounding, so we can extract that allochemical and we can resynthesize, or we can mimic that allochemical and we can develop or synthesize other chemical that may be used as herbicide, right? Some bioherbicide. Then adoption of crop that is more allopathic to weeds. So if we grow sorghum and we know that sorghum can compete weeds because it secretes certain allochemicals like dhurin, so we can grow a sorghum plant, okay, if there is heavy infestation of weeds. Then we can use allopathic in crop residue to prevent weed growth, okay, like mulching. We can do mulching to prevent the weed growth or suppress the weed growth. Then if we know the competition, the allopathic effect of one crop on another crop, then we can wisely choose our crops in intercropping or sequential cropping system, okay. So there will be no loss. If we do not know what is the allopathic effect, if one plant is having allopathic effect on another or not, then there may be faulty practice of cropping, choosing crops in cropping system or in intercropping, right? So what we studied today in this lecture: what is allopathy, why it is direct in nature, then who proposed allopathy concept, and then different types of allopathy like autoallopathy, alloallopathy, true allopathy, functional allopathy, concurrent or direct allopathy, residual allopathy. Then different forms of allopathy interaction. Then what are the problems of allopathy in agriculture? Then what are the allochemicals, and we grouped all the allochemicals into 6 groups. Then source of allochemicals, then what are the mechanism of action of allochemical, fate of allochemicals, then application of allochemicals in weed management. So if you have any doubt, you can ask me in the comment section. And okay, see you in the next lecture. Till then, bye bye, have a great day.